Here at Helmuth Ford, we are a small town dealership with no hassle and no pressure.
The Watch Your Opera House in Watch Your, Iowa invites you to a night of golden oldies from the 50s to the 80s with jukebox hits from the band Hideaway Honey. This Central Iowa band performs top classic hits from such artists as Journey, Heart, Tanya Tucker, Shania Twain, The Judds, and many more. Tickets are just $10 and can be purchased at watchyoroperahouse.org or get them at the door. It's the band Hideaway Honey this Saturday, September 28th at 7 p.m. at the Watch Your Opera House.
All right, welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. We should be live on YouTube and I think on Facebook. I'm not 100% sure where this is going for sure. But hopefully we get some people tuning in here. But if not, you'll be able to listen to us regular podcast and Steve Shetler Media Thursday evening for that. We kind of, Trev kind of always sends a rundown of things he wants to talk about. But then today happened and he sent it out yesterday or maybe even Monday night. Today happened and we're going to pivot. UNLV quarterback Matt Schluka is essentially stopped. He will not play for UNLV. He's going to preserve his red shirt. He's played 3 games. He is 3-0, beat 2 Big 12 teams in Kansas and Houston as 2 of those 3 wins. And then there's some discrepancy on why he's not playing. And I don't think that is the big picture here. The big picture here is setting a precedence of what could happen in the future and what will happen in the future, and with no rules and regulations, what can happen. And this is what people were afraid of. Just some of the stats that have came out. And the biggest thing that we found out with this, and I listened to Williams and Bloom podcast on Cyclone Fanatic, and obviously Brent Bloom is in charge of Iowa State's We Will Collective. So he is in on this situations a little bit, and he said it's more common than you think that these are handshake agreements, kind of a wink wink nod nod, you're getting this much money. Now he says We Will has transitioned to especially some of their bigger names, you can use fill in the blank athlete, to having contracts. But there are people that just have, kind of handshake agreements that you're going to get this much money. And it's just on them to fulfill their obligation. And then obviously for the We Will Collective or whichever school collective, it's up to them to fill their obligation as well. Trev, just a few quick thoughts, and then I've got a few more stats on here. What have you seen about that? You're obviously closer to Vegas out there in Colorado, but what is being talked about out there? What have you seen and heard?
I've seen conflicting reports from both sides, which is expected. And really what it comes down to me is eventually the truth will come out. If there was an official contract in hand and he darted and is lying about it, shame on him. Flip side of the university, if there was a contract in hand or whoever's involved in that and they didn't keep their end of the deal, shame on them. This is what's going to turn into, though. And if there was a deal in place, imagine an NFL player, an NFL team just saying, we're randomly not going to pay you this week. I mean, it would be a what storm going on. So I'm going to wait for more info to come out. Like I said, whatever side's in the wrong, it's kind of shame on them.
Agreed. And I think, and Brent Bloom, I'm going to credit Brent Bloom for putting this idea. He goes, really nobody might be wrong. He goes, they're both wrong and they both could be right. And I'm going to give you those situations. What's kind of came out is he was promised $100,000. That's kind of what's come out. And there's reports that said he's only been paid $3,000 so far. And he keeps asking for more money and they're not giving it to him. That's the player side. The UNLV side has said they've met every obligation that they've owed him. Not saying a dollar amount, but they've met it. is there a possibility that they're both right? And I think this could have happened. He's played really well. He's got 2 big-time wins, and he realizes he's worth more than $100,000. His family realized it. His agent realized it. And some team called and said, if you come here next year, we'll pay you, let's just say an SEC team offers him $750,000. But he has to stop playing today to save his redshirt so he can play next year. And it's already in the books. There's no tampering rules, which is, this is why there has to be some guidelines and rules. Somebody got to him and is offering that. And then maybe the kid or the kid's representative went to the collective and say, hey, I'm being offered this. I'm worth way more than $100,000. I need $700,000 to stay. And UNLV doesn't have the money or didn't want to pay it. Is there a chance that happened?
Oh yeah, there's a very high chance that happened. That's probably very likely. The flip side of that is, of course, if somebody promised him on behalf of the university or behalf of the collective, and then all of a sudden isn't paying up, and like you said, it was just a verbal contract, and maybe the university didn't even know that something like this was in place, and the player thought there was. So both of those, I mean, the truth will come out, I think, eventually. We're going to find out the money trail, I would assume, and who's lying. And like you said, maybe both are in the right and both in the wrong at the same time. And yeah, I won't be surprised on any of it. I just think the truth will come out soon enough.
And he came from he played 3 years at Holy Cross and probably got $0 or, truly a couple $1,000s from the local car dealership. What NIL is truly supposed to be. UNLV probably paid him $50,000 to $100,000. That's kind of what Brent Bloom said. That's kind of the going rate for that type of player. But then he played really well for 3 weeks. And I've, it's been insinuated, and I've heard it from many different people that Rocco Beck turned down $1 million from other schools to stay at Iowa State. Now, I'm very interested to know what we are paying him. I would guess several $100,000, but I don't know that. So these places are offering all kinds of money, and like they used Auburn as an example, who needs a quarterback. They're desperate to win. Would they pay a guy $1 million to come in with someone that they think would help them win? Sure, they would. And he doesn't look like he's an NFL quarterback. So do you blame the kid to try to maximize his last year of college football? You could go from making $100,000 to $800,000. So your $700,000 in 1 year of playing football could set yourself up for life. You can't live on that, but if you invest it and heck of a down payment on a house, or, maybe buy a house for $200,000 and you're 25 years old, you're way ahead of the game. To 99.9% of people, you're that 1%er with 1 year of playing football. So I can't blame the kid totally. We can blame the system, and we can blame everybody involved. We've let it get there. There are no rules. So is it right that the kid quit on his team? No. But who's to say that, it's tough to turn down money when it's offered to you.
Yeah, and in that situation, if he is trying to go get more money, if he knows he's not an NFL player, can't blame the guy. But I'd have to consider doing the same thing if I was young like that and knew I really had no chance to play in the league. You hear about a lot of colleges now that are hiring former NFL GMs to come in and be basically a GM of the college program. You mentioned the Cyclone Collective. They kind of they're starting to figure out what certain players are worth. I'm sure they've got a big spreadsheet of position groups, what other schools are paying when they find out the info. So that's why these colleges are bringing in NFL GMs, because I think eventually here soon there are going to be guidelines put into place, because there has to be.
Well, and the big thing right now, what's happening is every time the NCAA tries to put a rule on there, they get sued and they lose. the reason the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA can operate the way they are, they have an exemption from Congress that they can do their thing. And, an anti-monopoly rule. I can't remember what it is. But essentially what needs to happen is that needs to happen for the NCAA. But in order to do that, they're going to have to be employees. And then that brings in a whole nother set of rules because you're going to have private schools that go by one rule. Public schools have to go by, the public, issues. Then you're going to have, if you play for Iowa State, you're going to be taxed with IPERS and have IPERS money. And it's just when you have an employee, you've got a lot of stuff. Right now, they don't have that stuff because they aren't employees. They're getting money from the collective, and then they're up to, they're paying taxes and stuff just like that. But they don't have all the other things that come with being an employee of a state university or even an employee of a private university that just, they're 1099 employees, so they're on their own for their workman's comp, just things like that, and medical, and what benefits do you give them, and they're not in on that right now. They're just essentially money or housing or cars. Every contract's a little bit different, but there's a lot of things they don't have to do. But if you're a regular employee, you look at everybody's own paycheck and how many things you get deducted and added. And I know just as a teacher, there's different pots of money that I get paid with, and then a whole bunch of things get deducted too.
Yeah, everybody involved here, the NCAA, all the conferences, everybody else is involved. You had about 20 years to see this coming. And that's the problem when you don't have a strong leadership group or even a commissioner of a league. This is what it turns into. So I think eventually it'll be good in the long run. I'm all for college kids getting paid. They pay a lot of the bills. But when you don't have a strong leadership group in place, these are the type of things that are going to happen until you get that leadership group put to where they need to be.
Right. If this situation happened in the NFL, and let's just say he was playing for the Browns, and all of a sudden he quits and goes and signs with the Giants, and the Browns thought something went wrong, they could go to the NFL office, go to the commissioner, they'd investigate it, and if the Giants did something wrong, they'd be fined, suspended, lose draft picks, lose whatever. Right now, there's nothing to penalize anybody for anything, because right now we don't know that a rule was violated because there are no rules. And then there's no one to look at. And then who loses in this? You think about UNLV. There's some places that put them as the group of 5 representative. They're out. They probably started doing some TV money. There was probably a lot of UNLV fans that went and bought rest of the season tickets, or bought tickets for the upcoming game, or bought tickets to go see them on the road somewhere. And now it's gone because they're not the same team, and I'm sure the backup quarterback's not as good as this guy. So I feel bad for everybody. I feel bad for UNLV as a team because you think about the head coach. He's turning around that program. A few years ago, Iowa State went out there and just absolutely boat raced them. They're 3-0. They beat 2 Big 12 teams. They're fighting for their lives out there in the Mountain West. They're trying to get picked up by the Pac-12 or, Hail Mary to the Big 12 type. They want to get as much money as they can, and winning seasons and winning records and getting to a playoff will go a long ways in helping that. And you felt you had it. Your coaching, your team, your players, and now it's just all gone in an instant. And as a coach and as a teammate of that individual, there is absolutely zero you could have done any different. It's just sad. And that's what's sad about it.
Yeah, these are the consequences of, like I said, the NCAA had seen this coming for a long time, and they wanted to hold their ground, in my opinion, and act like this was never coming, even though I think we all kind of knew this was eventually going to happen, especially a few years before it did, at least in my opinion. But yeah, you're right. Now you have people that are affected by this that shouldn't be, unintentionally. I'm sure, if the quarterback's in the wrong here, I'm sure he didn't want to hurt his coach and teammates. But as you mentioned, if he can go make $700,000 extra, that's life-changing money. It's a business decision, and there's no rules right now. So what do you do?